by Cashew Machines Vietnam. I hope you have taken the time out to step out and have a look, observe, and seen the fabulous machine in operation that CMV has put outside in the Machinery Pavilion. The platinum sponsors for the conference this year are Taiho Unicorn. Delegate batch sponsors are UB Nuts. Preferred technology partner, Nanopix. Once again, I'll urge you, do step out into both the pavilions, the machinery side and the non-machinery and processing side to check out the equipment and the products on display. Moving on, our preferred machinery partner is Gayatri. Delegate kit sponsor is Mayor. Welcome cocktail dinner that we enjoyed yesterday was brought to us by Lion Overseas Private Limited Singapore. Our high tea sponsors are SV Traders Amritsar. Our high tea sponsors are AKS Trans Solutions Private Limited. Our supporting bodies are the 10 founding state association members. They are Andhra Pradesh Cashew Manufacturers Association, APCMA, Bengal Cashew Association, Goa Cashew Manufacturers Association, Gujarat Cashew Processors Association, Karnataka Cashew Manufacturers Association, Maharashtra Cashew Manufacturers Association, All Odisha Cashew Processors Association, South India Cashew Manufacturers Association, Tamil Nadu Cashew Processors and Exporters Association, popularly known as TNCPA, and North Cashew Processors Welfare Association. Gentlemen, before I begin with our first speaker of the day, may I gently remind you all, please ensure that your mobiles are on silent mode. Our first speaker of the day has already been waiting patiently online for his time to address us. Mr. Gaurav Patil is the Global Business Head of Cashews and Macadamia Processing, OFI, Olam Foods International in Vietnam. With over 12 years of leadership at Olam, he currently oversees global operations for cashews and macadamias, driving efficiency and sustainability in the agri-export sector. As a vice president, his portfolio encapsulates business development and, of course, sustainable practices and revenue models. With this, as I hand over the airwaves to Mr. Patil, let me tell you, he is giving us a full overview of the trends and opportunities on the global cashew market in 2025. Here on.
Hello, hi everyone. Good morning, and I sincerely apologize not being present there in physical form. There, I'm giving a virtual communication, but something emergency came up. So, but I really want to be a part of the AICA meeting and share my thoughts and also interact with various members. Today, the OFI team is present in AICA convention, and we hope to get more learnings and interactions with various members of the community. So to start with the discussion today, I'm going to present on cashew markets and also going to touch upon on the nuts and nuts ingredients, trends and opportunities. And going from there, we will discuss on what are the current trends, where the areas where you feel that the growth can come, and also how together we can bring that cashew consumption globally in a better place. Yeah, thank you. So this is the first slide where I just wanted to touch upon on how the global RCN or the global raw cashew market looks today. If you see the numbers that in 2023 and 2024, there was a difference where the crop reduced by close to 2% on annual basis. But that start of the year from January to June, when we see the West African crop was reasonably short, and that short percentage was compensated to a large extent by the East African crop. So if you see the green labels in the presentation in 2024, which is 520,000 tons, that's a crop which is coming from East Africa. Normally, the East African crop is close to 300,000 to 330,000 tons, but 2024 was a year with a unprecedented supply, which kind of compensated of the shortage which was coming from West Africa and from the Asia crop also, which is including India and Vietnam and Cambodia. So we saw a shortage of that, and which has also led to the increase in the prices for RCN last year. and that led to subsequent increase in the kernel prices. But if you see this year, 2025 crop looks really healthy. The West Africa supply has kind of already been done. It is now reaching to destinations in India and Vietnam. And we are pretty sure that the crop for West Africa is far better than last year. We are assuming that the East African crop remains same as last, which will mean that we are at least 4% or maybe if it gets little better, 5% more than last year. So supply should not be a constraint this year when we reach by November or December. But definitely there has been some regulatory things which has happened in West Africa, which has kind of drip feed the market, where the RCN was held on by Ivory Coast initially for processors. Later on, Burkina also followed. To an extent, we have seen also the same thing happening in Benin. But even with all that, the RCN finds its way and it's coming to India and Vietnam in next 2 or 3 months. So this is about the kernel consumption globally. So if you see in last few years from 2019 onwards, the cashew kernel consumption globally has continued to increase at a good pace. So we see that around 8% and 6% from last 2 to 3 years is increasing. If I take a CAGR basis also, we are increasing at a CAGR of close to 6.5 to 7%. And this also has been fueled by a large extent mainly because of the good prices which cashew kernels were enjoying from 2022 onwards. We had reasonably low prices in the largest processor or let's say exporter in Vietnam at close to 2.55 or $2.6 per pound for 320s. This was able to fuel the consumption globally, and we also saw a lot of usage for ingredients where cashews are being used in Europe and US, and that also continues to take as a part of more vegan and healthier lifestyle choices. So this consumption was also driven by a good price segment, good taste, not a very strong nutty taste, and that has also led for a better, stronger demand in 24, even when the crop was short. This has shot the prices up. That has kind of killed the demand to an extent to markets which are more price sensitive like Europe. So 2025 for us, the estimates are that the total consumption of kernel or the total demand of the kernel is going to take a hit. This hit is going to be twofold. One is because of price increase which has happened in last what do you say 9 to 10 months, 12 months. Let's assume. Let's say last July it started increasing significantly, and a lot of that kernel has shipped and reached to destinations in Jan, March, April, which is getting consumed in the retail markets. The second hit, which is going to come in the next 6 months, and it is coming because of tariff from US. So when Vietnam market starts exporting to US, and from 1st of August, we know that it's 20%. For countries which are other like Africa and from India, which is also going to get exported, it will be north of 20% or close to 20% only. So if you're going to have a product which is already high from last year plus 20% on top of it, the consumers are going to switch to a more cheaper alternative. And we might know, I don't know if everyone is aware in this convention that almonds prices have really become softened in last 2 to 3 weeks. And if you compare an almond to cashews, definitely almond becomes a better alternative today on snacking segment. So combining all of this, I feel there is going to be a drop in demand in 2025, and this can make the good RCN supply kind of soften the prices, and we might see more balanced RCN and kernel prices coming next 6 months. This is on the regional outlook. I just wanted to give a snapshot of how globally uh, various countries are panning out in terms of cashews, and this is specific to cashews where we see in India the shift in India in last 7 to 8 years has been that India is moving more and more to domestic market, and this is because of ever increasing demand, which continues to uh, consume all the cashews. And we also see a lot of innovation and ingredient usage which is happening in India. So that is also helping for processors to continue to process and fuel the current market in India. At the same time, Brazil also did the same, and they wanted to reduce exports and consume in the local market. But it is not the same story as India. I think Brazil is getting gradually a lesser of a significant player in the global cashew supply chain volumes. Even in terms of consuming or in terms of processing, I think Brazil has come very closer to what we would say, let's say, a RCN grower like Indonesia. So a lot of countries from West Africa and Asia has taken over in terms of volume and processing also. So I think on a domestic consumption basis, I think we should just discuss India. And in Asia, next to India, I think the next big market which is coming up is China. So in China, there has been a reasonable demand of cashews, which is with skin. There's a specific SKU which goes into China, which is big nut 180s, which are with roasted and salted with skin. And it's a significantly bigger market for it. Close to 4,000 containers of cashews goes like this there. Second part is due to this duty structure which is coming up between US and China. I'm very sure that very sure that China is going to look after replacing almonds and macadamias and other nuts which are coming, let's say pistachios coming from US, with some nuts which are not grown in US, which I think the most likely one is cashews. So, and cashews are processed and grown in the backyard of China, which is in Vietnam. This consumption is going to go at a much faster rate. I have seen China growing by at least 35 to 40% in last 3 years, and I am sure most of the Chinese consumers or Chinese processors traders are looking of replacing some particular snack nuts with cashews. I believe in next 3 years China might import same amount of cashews as what US is importing, and it is going to be a big player in terms of cashew consumption. Coming to West Africa, Ivory Coast. So for West Africa, processing focus from last 10 years, I think was mainly led by Ivory Coast. And which is why Ivory Coast has received a good success in terms of processing a larger volume and becoming a second largest kernel exporter. Still, I think total export is not to an extent where the country would like to have, but the way the investments are there and processing is going on, and Europe is looking towards more buying of Africa. I'm sure in next 1 or 2 months we will see more than half of the crop of, sorry, not 2 months, more in next 2 years or 3 years we will see more than half of the West African crop will be processed locally. And following the same bandwagon, Nigeria has increased their volumes of processing. We have seen this year Burkina putting a ban on exports. Burkina and Ghana, I think, very soon are going to join in that. But there is a silent player which is growing gradually, which is Tanzania. Tanzania is growing at a significantly faster rate. If you have seen in earlier slides, Tanzania was a crop which is 220, 240,000 tons, which has moved to 500,000 tons now. And the seedlings which were put or distributed in 2020-21 period are going to fruit further. So I'm sure Tanzania is looking towards a larger crop in coming years, and at the same time looking to process a significant portion locally. So there is a lot of projects and incentives which are going from government, and they are working with most of the Southeast Asian countries like Korea and Taiwan and Japan, and looking for investments into that. Along with cashew processing, also the cashew oil is something which is of an interest because of biofuel. So that kind of projects are going to also support growth in Tanzania. Cambodia is the second largest grower of RCN. The kind of plantations I have visited last year, and I've seen the kind of plantations there in Cambodia. Not all the plantations are coming to full yield. Uh, Today, I would say the whatever has been installed, or let's say not installed, the right word, the whatever has been planted there today, uh, only 50 to 60% of the total crop has come out. So on a full yield basis, Cambodia is going to cross a million ton in 2 years. So sharing all of this input when I'm talking here about all these countries only on the growing part, there is a very clear signal and very clear information that crop supply is not going to be a constraint. So barring a very strong weather phenomena where we might see a small drop, but there is enough and more crop planted which can compensate any drop in global supplies in certain regions. So demand has to move at a similar pace as what plantations are growing. But if it is not, then we are looking for a longer period of low price kernels and RCN in coming years, which is also putting a lot of pressure on processing cost and processing capacity and processing efficiencies. So Vietnam is evaluating that, and then with that also I think it is evolving more in terms of technical advancements. And I've seen the cost in Vietnam processing drop by close to 40% in last 4 years. It has become more and more mechanical. The cashew processing still depends a large part on manual peeling, but a lot of innovation is happening on that. Apart from that, I think most of that has been made more technologically advanced, and we see lesser depending on manual labor. So with the regional outlook and about cashew crop, I think I have given a reasonable flavor. We will move to discussion on what we are looking in terms of trends, consumer trends, what opportunities and what future we look for nuts and cashews. So here I'm trying to highlight and share about what are the global mega trends are impacting industries and consumer. Now, this slide is important. We should not see it is from a cashew lens. We should see in terms of the total trends globally, how the industries are moving and how the consumers are thinking today. And not only about nuts, cashews, or specifically on agri commodity, but anything else which is about the electronics they use, about the textile person are consuming, or a travel choice a person takes. Because the first part which I can hear clearly, and it was earlier more of a discussion in Western nations, it has come more in Asia now, that we want to be a part of the sustainable future. And the kind of demographic which is changing, where we are seeing more Gen Z are there, more youngsters are coming through. The way information flow is there, I'm sure there's a more acknowledgement on sustainable future. So when any choice is made, and I can see this very specific in a coffee industry, where people are more pro on having a sustainable coffee as compared to something which is non-traceable or which is not having any background or nothing related to sustainability, because of the disposable income, people are ready to pay a slightly more because they believe they're contributing to the sustainable future. The second part is on technological disruption. We are seeing, especially in India, and I'm very sure we have seen the kind of, from e-commerce we have moved to in-stock commerce. The way things have changed today, the the availability of things at the blink of an eye today has changed the way anything can be provided to end consumers, and that indulgence in getting things faster definitely is driving more consumption, not only in terms of food and let's say food and let's say agri commodity part, but also in terms of any other industry which is related to even technology, phones, um accessibility towards information. Everything is moving faster, at a much faster pace as compared to what was 3 4 years back. I have touched upon on the demographic and social shifts. One specific part I would share here, which has changed now, and it was it has not changed mainly in the Western nations. It has mainly changed in Asia. China was the leader first, and India is following up, where the new social structure and the social fiber in our countries, especially in India, is also moving towards uh, a nano, not nuclear families, to a nano families, or let's say to what you call a word known as DINK, which is double income no kids kind of a combination, where people are moving and people are more focused in terms of having a more indulgent lifestyle than those social fibers or those family structures which we had initially, which is why also we have a more disposable income, and hence we have seen a significantly faster growth in terms of industries, in terms of availability of new startups, and also in terms of new products which are coming to us to make our life easier. Next important point is economic and political cases which are driving the volatility in the market. This would be specific. I can talk about various other products also, but specifically on nuts and cashews, if I see um, the way political influence is coming in Ivory Coast, the political influence we saw this year in Burkina, the political influence we saw earlier in Tanzania a few years back, definitely is kind of disrupting the balance of forces. We are not seeing a free trade, a free market where supply and demand balance out each other, because everyone can have a choice to buy and process and sell. This throttling of supply, this control of supply because of certain logic, certain reasons, is definitely bringing the volatility in the market, and hence smaller players are taking the bigger hit because of this volatility which comes because of political influence. Next is health and well-being. I will touch on it a bit more on in the subsequent slides, but that is very similar to what a thought process for the new gen is coming in terms of sustainable future. They're also bringing the same thought process that we need to focus more on not only on physical health but on mental well-being also. It's a critical part, and that awareness, that understanding is kind of coming up more in Asia, which was kind of more prevalent in terms of health and well-being in Europe or let's say US earlier. So these are the key factors which I wanted to share quickly on what are the factors are driving market growth. I've shared already on health awareness. There is a significant health awareness which is driven in our Asian market, and that is mainly because of I think we got to know more and more, and we started reading more, maybe because of COVID. But at the same time, the generation is changing. New gen is coming. The kind of balance in terms of youngsters, middle age, and old generation. That balance has changed to an extent in last 10 years, but definitely has moved up. Also, it also kind of moves into a subset of how you can be more healthier by changing your dietary habits. So that more movement to a vegan diet or adding nuts as a part of your breakfast, adding nuts as a part of pre-crunch before the meal, and that is also moving as a trend. This also trend gets more popular because of accessibility towards internet, accessibility towards Instagram, Facebook, which is making people more and more aware because people are seeing and promoting that healthier lifestyle, healthier choices, which is why we have seen a shift also. That also is good because it drives a positive consumption factor for nuts industry, and we can see there is definite growth for increase in consumption of cashews, increase in consumption of almonds, pistachios, hazelnuts. Most of our nuts are getting consumed at a better pace today. This connects to the premiumization, but the premiumization is connected towards higher disposable income today. It was always there, but the disposable income availability with more number of people was not 10 years back in India. I think both of them have come and become balanced now, and which is why people are focusing on healthier diets, health awareness, and are ready to spend more money for a premium product because nuts have been considered always a premium products in India, and definitely today, a normal middle class person also it does not find or flinch before buying a large packet of cashews or large packet of almond raisins combinations or mixed nuts. It becomes in even the gifting industry in India now, instead of moving from the traditional sweets and all, people are moving towards gifting nuts, nut mixes, nut spreads, and that can continue to grow. The second part to this is one is that we have premium products which are related to nuts, but at the same time, the next facet is coming is organic. And I have seen a trend growing in India mainly in terms of vegetables, which is being promoted more on organic side. But this is going to catch up more on the nut side. So the other segments, which are cosmetic applications and how the technology has made the foray into or the a jab in terms of developing a better technologically fast industry for cashews. It is a smaller factor. Cosmetic applications globally are being used for nuts industry specifically are not having a significant usage. But today we have almond oil, macadamia oil going into cosmetic industry. We have seen walnut husk and those pistachio shell powders which are being used as scrubs. That is going, but that is a very small part. So we are still not there. It is just a start. We have scratched the surface, but soon in next 5 to 7 years we might see a big jump coming in that as people see more and more in terms of using natural products and lesser chemicals in cosmetic products. Technology, as I was sharing, it is it's a gradual process. Last few years, it has moved to a faster pace for cashew specifically, which has made lesser dependency on manual labor. But if I compare this with an industry which is a soluble coffee industry, a strawberry sorting industry, um, or industry which is maybe similar nut like a hazelnut, we are still not at the mechanization level in cashews as these industries are. So we are still some way to go. Maybe we are 70% there. We have still 30% to catch up. So I wanted to share what are the key factors normally which influence consumer decisions, because we have seen what are the factors which are driving the growth, but what are the key factors which influence our decision making. But these factors are varying in different regions depending on different consumers. So what we see in Europe as a priority for a consumer does not necessarily might fly in the same way it in South America. So in terms of food habits, in terms of social habits or social lifestyle choices, each of these regions will behave very differently. So as you can see on the screen, there are brands in North America and shelf life in South America. Shelf life in South America is not specifically, that's a technical word, but shelf life is basically that um, when those nut butters are taken or any of those mixed nuts are taken, when those are bought, normally the pack sizes are reasonably big. I have seen that even a normal food pack size is also big. So whenever it is bought, it's always bought in a reasonably bigger size and it is taken home. So if it is a longer shelf life, it is consumed more because they can consume for a period of 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So that's how the criteria for shelf life goes in Latin America. But specifically for Asia, the food safety and ingredient sourcing is one key part. In terms of food safety, what we are talking is this is a broader category and there are subcategories into that. A major choice was a good food basically and food safety. So when we buy cashews also in India or in China or in Taiwan, most of these countries, when you see, everyone wants a good premium product, good looking product. It should be crunchier, it should be having lower moisture, it should be fresher. So that kind of elements are basically which are influencing the decision for consumers in Asia, and how they have been sourced, where they have been sourced. Sourcing is not related to the traceability, but more, let's say in India, people would love to have our local Indian cashew, which people prefer better. So that kind of ingredient sourcing mindset also makes a lot of difference in Asia for that. So this is just the total segment which was used for survey is shared here, where Asia we are showing safety and ingredient sourcing, while Latin America price, health benefits, freshness was discussed, where shelf life was taken priority. But there are number two also. So basically, shelf life and then price will be the closer second. While Europe, when you talk about naturalness, so when you do a survey, same in next 2 years, these things will change in each of these regions. So these are the trends of healthy snack. So let me explain here. When I'm talking about snack here, it is not only nuts. This is just general snacking, which is nuts, seeds, and trail mixes, one part of that snacking segment. And the second is meat snacks. Meat snacks are, let's say, dried meat, uh, jerkies which are being used on the go snacks, and then there are dried fruit snacks which are dried mangoes, dried pineapples. So then there are dried fruits like mangoes, dried pineapples, and dried jackfruits, etc., which are also picking up. Now in this segment, if we see from 2022 to 2025, all of the segments are growing at a similar pace, and basis that it is extrapolated for 2032. But the segment which is growing on absolute number and volume is dried fruit snacks. This segment is taking let's say, a faster or better interest in consumer choices, because when today you want to have a mango flavor, you don't want to eat a mango extract, a mango aroma flavor. But basically, you're saying I can have a mango, which is a dried mango itself with lesser sugar. Similarly, for jackfruits, if I cannot have fresh jackfruits, I can use a dried jackfruit to be eaten later, because it's again a healthier choice. It all connects there. So nuts, seeds, and trail mixes are a combination of fibers and proteins and various vitamins and magnesiums which are you are consuming. But in terms of indulgence, this can also be sourced to a certain extent with a natural product like dried mangoes or dried pineapples, or jackfruits or dried durian. So that's how the segment is moving up. This meat this meat snack segment is growing majorly into the Western markets, but to compensate and the same growth to be shown, we have seen it is growing, which is nuts and dried fruits is growing in the Asian market, and a faster pace at dried fruit. So now coming specifically on cashews, what we see as the future opportunities for cashew globally, where I can add the value-added cashew products and innovation, these two segments together, and these are the areas where cashew, along with other nuts, is going to grow, and I have seen that growth happening in last 5 years clearly, because cashews were always used in snacking earlier, but I have seen growth of segments where cashew being used as cashew cheese, cashew yogurt, because cashew butter was a more common thing when we had initially almond butters and peanut butter. So cashew butter was also growing, but different ingredients which were making cheese, protein powders, nut creams, yogurts, which is coming out of cashews, is a better segment where it will go at a faster pace. Now, why it will grow at a faster pace? Because among most of the nuts, cashew is one of the nut which has no nutty taste, which is or lesser nutty taste, which is why you roast it. When you roast it, it gives a higher sense of nuttiness or nutty taste. But if you don't do, almond has a higher nutty taste, hazelnut has a nutty taste, but cashews are not having. So when you want to replace a vegan creamer, cashew cream or cashew milk can go as a better replacement as compared to an almond milk or oat milk. Very similar to what you see in a rice milk. Rice milk does not have a very strong taste or flavor, which is why a rice milk can be an easier replacement. So cashew being a much healthier choice or a premium choice, that would be a better option in terms of value-added products, which are being fueled by the innovation. This innovation and value addition can be supported by sourcing sustainable cashews and marketing better by Insta commerce, and then focusing into segments where we are seeing a faster growth. We have seen reasonably faster growth in Japan, Korea, and Taiwan, although they are smaller pockets. But in last 5 years, we have seen faster growth there. China has come to play in last 2 years more, and it can be a bigger segment for cashews to grow tremendously. But if I compare a percentage growth basis, I think these two, three small countries are growing at also at a faster pace. This is specific related to the positioning of cashews and how it can drive future growth. So cashew has a certain protein content, but if we develop a protein powder, a cashew protein powder, which is by extracting fat out of cashews and keeping the balance as a higher protein content cashew powder, it can be also used as a cashew defatted cashew protein powder, and it can be used in various blends for beverages, for cereals, for also making bars. It can be used into chunks, but it can be a very good, tasty protein replacement. But today, what are the two main drivers of good diet? One is protein, second is fiber. If you see in terms of the fiber positioning or the fiber presence in nuts, cashew comes at a lower end. Almonds, hazelnuts, Brazil nuts, no, sorry, almonds, hazelnuts, and macadamia nuts are one which are the top ones in fiber. So we have to look at blends which can be made with cashew powders, cashew protein powders, and almond powders, almond defatted, or hazelnut and cashew blends, which can give you a right subset of protein plus fiber combination, which is good for your healthier diet, and also in terms of balancing the total combination of vitamins, proteins, fibers, mental wellness by having a better sense of better presence of magnesium, because in magnesium, which gives you a better sense of mental wellness, is present in Brazil nuts and in cashews, which are the top two ones. So this is one positioning which I feel with innovation and NPD, it can really help cashew to grow further in Asia market and also in global markets. And there's a lot of trials and developments are happening in this. I believe if it can be put in a more structured format across industry, this is going to help us develop far better products and sustainable products for all consumers. So this is the summary slide or the last slide where we want to share how the future direction for healthy snacking is looking. So we have a clear opportunity. There's a big space which is open where more and more consumers are looking for on-the-go snacking. And on-the-go snacking, they would like to have an option which is more healthier and choose their healthier lifestyle. Second, in terms of a balance which we can provide, I shared earlier that presence of magnesium as a one element in most of the nuts gives a mental wellness part. When you also have fibers and proteins available in those nuts, which can give you a more physical health support also. So both balance can come as a part of opportunity, and we can kick into that space. The last part is it satisfies all the segments. The middle segment, which is having a higher disposable income, or the higher segment which has more pro in terms of indulgence, we can provide it a premium product, healthier lifestyle, and best for your mental wellness as a combination. So I believe I'm very, very bullish on and the future of nuts and future of snacking nuts. And as a cashew guy, I am super, super bullish on the growth of cashews and the innovations which are going to drive the growth of cashews in Asia and also globally. Thank you for the time, and thank you for being very patient in listening what I'm saying.
Thank you so much, Mr. Patil. And sir, we have time for a question. In case anyone has a question, may I see a hand up? We are sending a mic. Mr. Rahul Kamath would like to add to that.
Hi, fantastic presentation. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
My question is regarding to the Chinese market. Now, how
Yeah.
big is the nuts market in China, and what is the present share of cashews in that nut market? What is the present share of nuts in what is the present share of cashews in this nuts market, and
Okay.
what is the share of American nuts in this market? And if there is a tariff war between China and America, what is that cashew can attain or cashew can hope for? And the last question here is, what is the scope for India to get into this market given the present geopolitical situation?
Sure. Okay. So thanks, Mr. Rahul. So the total container numbers I cannot recall clearly as the last number, but I can tell you on the percentage basis. So the total nuts market in China would be roughly 40 to 44,000 containers. I am telling in containers we can convert into tons. A container is close to 16 tons. So let's say 44,000 containers of kernels, or some of them comes in terms of in shells also, because pistachios are traded in terms of in shells, which are open mouth in shells. So we need to take that also in consideration. But if that is the number, cashews are close to 15% of the total market size of nuts, because the major consuming nuts in China are almonds, walnuts, pistachios, then cashews. I think pistachios and cashews will be very similar, but let's say third will be cashews, then pistachios, and then macadamias. So today, cashews is only 15% of the total market size, which nut consumption happens in China. Now, in terms of American nuts, it's not a very big market for American nuts because the duties were always there. So hence, Australian nuts, which is Australian almonds, were going to a large extent to China, and then value-added U.S. nuts were moving to China as a second option. Then third was walnuts, which were growing in China. China is the largest grower of walnuts, and then Chilean walnuts also go third. Fourth, I think, goes is cashews, which goes mainly from Vietnam. So, given the dynamics which are happening today in terms of trade war between China and US, I feel clearly almond consumption is going to take a hit in China, mainly because of these differences. Uh, China might have a limitation in terms of the total almond they can import and consume. For them, the largest supply is going to come from Australia only. That's one part. Uh, there is a caveat in that because of the overall supply being better in US for almonds and the prices being softer. This might not be seen quickly, but the way population is increasing in China, they would like to see an alternative which is always sustainably available. There is no trade war. There's not going to be restrictions coming in next 5-10 years because Vietnam is not going to go against China. So cashews are going to definitely grow at a faster rate. I will tell you the containers. 2022, 3,000 containers were exported from Vietnam to China. Today it has gone to 7,000 containers. And from Vietnam to US, I think the total containers which go are around 9,000 containers. So, so in 2 or 3 years, China has a capability to go to 9,000 containers, which is equal to what goes to US from Vietnam. Now, the number three part, which you asked, how India can play and participate in that market. So, what I understand clearly is that there's a duty angle. Sorry, I think someone was saying. So there is a duty angle from India to China, and I believe that as the tariff wars continue, and we might see the numbers for India also might be open clearly between US and India. So once it happens, I think India has an opportunity, and we should be more open from India to send our delegations to China and discuss on nuts. I think China has a lot of requirements of cashews, which are also premium cashews. India is a market which can provide significantly premium and good cashews. One of the best market globally actually to give premium cashews. So India has a better chance to go and sell in China, not on value adds, but clearly on premium white cashews. So if we can put our efforts as associations in India and delegations can work with China, we might find a way where we can market. And this is the right time and opportunity for us to do.
Okay, I think we have one more question now.
Hi, Mr. Patil. Thanks for this nice presentation. I am Satyanarayan from Alia Commodities. My
Okay.
question is pertaining to Vietnam versus India. Like we see Vietnam is more cost competitive. In what major factors makes Vietnam more cost competitive than India? If you can throw some light.
But the first clear part I can see is that, and we know that in cashew processing, a labor intensive business. So somehow Vietnam has been able to let go that labor dependency at a faster rate as compared to India, and that there are a few elements to that. The first element is the way we do processing in India. So there is a certain part which continues to do the roasting and cracking of cashews, but there is a certain segment I know in Bangalore that we are doing steaming and then cracking, very similar to Vietnam. So in that, whenever we are doing this cracking and moving the material, the kind of yield realization we are looking in India and the kind of yield realization we look in terms of Vietnam, that's slightly different. Where Vietnam processors might have a lower yield per metric ton of RCN because they do not focus and put a lot of labor in terms of picking out the last kernel available in that mix. So sorting setup and the sorting labor is significantly lower in Vietnam as compared to India. First, second part, the consumers in India or all the buyers in India are very specific. To an extent, I would say sometimes finicky also on the smallest of the defect in the cashew. So we spend a significant amount of labor in grading. Though we have mechanizations like nanopix which has come into India and we are able to reduce the labor, but still we spend a lot of money and labor on sorting of cashews. The smallest of defects which are, if I talk about LBWs, which is light blemishes, I think that defect in Vietnam, no one picks it out. It just goes as a part of normal 320s. There's not separate segregation which happens on that. And even if it happens to color sorters only. So two areas which is there definitely. Third part is in terms of peeling. So in India, scrapes are considered as a clear defect, light scrapes and deep scrapes, and then that are not part of your premium segment, premium 320 and premium 240, which is why our workers are also very careful. And hence, worker which can do close to 12 kgs of partially peeled kernel a day does only 7 to 8 kgs a day in India, as compared to Vietnam, maybe 12 kgs and 14 kgs also they do. So per worker efficiency also is different. Hence today, Vietnam today, I would say a processing cost will be roughly, a small processor will be $100 per ton, and India would be $180 to $200 per ton in my sense.
I guess that answers your question. So with this, thank you so much. Can we please have a round of applause for Mr. Patil?